In domain 11, we talk about encryption and key management. Since we need encryption for the cloud, we need to know how we're going to deal with that. One of the big things that I always tell people is don't put the key with the encrypted data. And we talk about that a lot in domain 11, realizing that people actually do that in a lot of cases. In domain 12, we talk about identity, entitlement, and access management. We dig a little deeper into it. We saw it in the previous domain. And here we start talking about the relationship between the policy decision point and the policy enforcement point and what that means to you when you're designing your cloud infrastructure. We get back into a security assertion markup language and WS federation and how we actually communicate credentials from one cloud provider to another and internally for us. We've already created all these credentials. How do we distribute them out? Finally, provisioning and authoritative sources, and that digs back into federation. In domain 13, we talk about virtualization, the problems that we have and the security concerns that we have with hypervisor architecture that causes a variety of problems. One of the big issues is that we can't see a lot of the hypervisor architecture because it is proprietary to the larger vendors out there. We also talk about how we protect ourselves in virtualization, the guest hardening, blind spots, the VM sprawl, how that actually works. What do we do about VMs in motion? And they can cause serious complexity issues for the auditors out there. What is the VMware attack surface, or we'll just say virtual machine attack surface, and compartmentalization of VMs and how we actually achieve that. In domain 14, we talk about something a little bit different that is unique to the Cloud Security Alliance. Most of the time we talk about infrastructure, platform, or software as a service. Now we're talking about security as a service. We're going to talk about the 10 different categories of security under this particular domain. Logging and reporting implications, and what kind of controls that we can expect from a purchase of security as a service. Now that's the last numbered domain, but we still have the Inertia cloud computing and talking about risk, recommendations for information security, dealing with isolation failure, economic denial of service, and licensing risks that you can run into. This is about 8% of the exam, and that matches up to the 92% that is in the Cloud Security Alliance information. So I think that's a reasonable balance for the exam itself. There is also in Inertia, there's VM hopping and understanding about that, and the key legal issues and how an OVF file works from a security standpoint, and talking about loss governance and how we deal with that. Lastly, in the Inertia document, we talk about the risk concerns of cloud providers and how they could be acquired. Because remember, companies buy companies and they buy more companies. Down inside of this document, you'll see these risk ratings, or these risk numbers, and this is the individual underlying vulnerabilities with each one of the cloud components that we have out there. They label them R1 through 35. And finally, we talk about data controller versus data processing definitions in the infrastructure as a service, and who's responsible for the guest system monitoring. Is it your organization or is it the cloud provider, and how do they hinge together? Now, let's switch gears here. You know what we're going to talk about. Now let's talk about what a good idea is before you get to class. You could take this class by itself and do lots and lots of reading, and I'll point you to all of that reading. Or what you could have is some experience that would help you along throughout the course. I think that CompTIA's Network Plus and their Security Plus would be a really good basis of understanding, because if we start talking about the protocols and throwing that information around, or if we start talking about information security or what access control is, those base definitions could really help change the context of how you're learning. They could prepare you well. You could have the CISSP. If you had that, I think that would be a very reasonable certification that would encompass more than just Network Plus and Security Plus, and actually allow you to know a lot about the business logic of cloud security. So I would say that those are some good prerequisites. According to the Cloud Security Alliance, there are no prerequisites. You could learn it all just from them. But I think this is a suggested path for us. Okay, let's talk about the certification and how you actually get it. So here you see the screen, the Certificate of Cloud Security. You actually create an account on their machines, and they give you the downloads of the preparation guides. You don't have to pay anything to learn. You can read those particular documents. For me, in this course, I take that document and I bring it to life. I offer it to you and give you my explanation of it from where I sit, which is a security professional trying to work with cloud providers and trying to work with individual organizations that want to purchase cloud. So you go in, you create an account, and then you can take your exam. You literally sign up, pay for it, and you're ready to go, and it gives you your 2 attempts. Now, the location of this exam is online. You don't have to get out of your PJs to take this test. You can come to our class here, learn in the convenience of your own home, prep yourself up, go in, pay for your certification, and boom, you're into your CCSK, and you can finish it in your jammies. You've got 90 minutes to take the 60 questions and get better than an 80%. When I took this exam, I studied for about 15 to 20 hours, but I have 15 years of experience. And what I found was that when I took the exam, it didn't take me as much as a minute per question. I went slow and careful, and that's why you can see that previously that I had a little bit of a higher score. Remember, you only need an 80% to pass. Okay, so how do you take it? You take it online. And more importantly, you take it on your honor. There's nobody watching you. There's nobody saying, okay, well, I'm going to check out your results. None of that stuff. You come, you learn, you set yourself up, you go online, and you take that exam. It's on your honor. So we want you to do that. We want you to learn about that certification. So how do you learn about that certification, and what other documentation can you get out there? And I've laid this out as to all of the material that I use to prepare for all 3 of the certifications, not just the one that we're talking about here. For NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, we've got the special publications, and these are all free, freely available to you. The 146, the 125, and the 144 are the major documents under NIST. EXIN has their own document called the Cloud Computing for Business from the Open Group. They actually offer it up for sale on theirs. It is not free. Now, if you run across something called the Foundational Workbook for EXIN, I strongly urge against it. That document needs about 4 or 5 revisions before it's worth the purchase price. And that purchase price is pretty low, so I think it's a waste of your time. Now, you can go and get the Anesia free also. That's a cloud computing document. That's one of the core documents representing 8% of your exam. And finally, you can go to the CSA themselves and get their top 10 threats document, which is a really strong, robust document on just the threats by themselves and the way to protect yourself against those threats, the controls. And then finally, the main core document for this exam is the CCSK version 3. When you go to log in the first time and create a credential, it says there's an old version and there's the current version. So you want the current version. There are a variety of certifications on the cloud. Now, there are 3 vendor-neutral certification bodies out there, and they have 4 different certifications. I got the first 3 in this list because I thought that that would be fair for me to know the different ways that people are approaching a material. The Cloud Security Alliance has the CCSK that is originally a US-based company, but it has become, or a US-based organization, but it has done a very good job of spreading itself out and being much more global. CompTIA, the Cloud Essentials certification, that is from people who you may know, Net Plus, Security Plus, A Plus. They've gotten into the cloud business. They are more of a certification for professionals kind of business. And the next one on here is the EXIN, and they have the Cloud Computing Foundation exam. And then you can go to the next level with them, which is the Certified Integrator of Secure Cloud Services, which requires that you have the Cloud Computing Foundation, that you know about ITIL, and that you do their security certification. Now that's the vendor-neutral ones. Down below that, there are 10 other vendor-specific products out there. 54 different certifications that are out there, different tests that you can take from all the different vendors that have all the different products out there. If you're in that vendor space, I say you take those certifications. But if you're like me, a generalist who does consulting, I try to stay away from the vendor-specific stuff until somebody comes along and says, well, you can't have this job unless you get that certification. And I say, okay, it's time to take another test. So if you're ready to have some fun, come to class. I'll see you then, and thank you.